Hi, gay! It's me, Patrick. If you're watching this in June, happy Pride Month! We're often told that the media we consume the most reflects who we are and what we value. For those of us repping the upper half of the Kinsey scale of certified gayness in 2022, that might hold true. If you could throw a stone at media itself, you'll likely hit a lesbian romance, a draggle of drag queens, and a gay country music singer or two. Oh, and that one guy from Riverdale. God, he's hot. It's almost taboo not to have a gay character in this era. Younger generations are fortunate enough to see media that is created specifically to reflect their identities. But for those of us who grew up in the 90s, not so much. Back in the day as a young gay gamer, it was hard to find any form of media that represented who I was. TV shows only showed me how we were viewed from an outsider's perspective. Shows like Will and Grace were great as the world was finally being exposed to strong LGBT characters, but the show relied so heavily on stereotypes and sexuality being a joke. This small sliver of a potential way of life was officially the gay Bible. If you weren't a Will or a Jack, you weren't gaying right. I was actually told this 3 times in late high school and in college. For straight people, this was all they saw or cared to know about homosexuals. For me, it was a quick lesson on how not all representation is accurate representation. In video games, we simply didn't exist. And in some capacity, we still don't. I can't name a single gay male lead character in a mainstream video game, and those side characters that fall on the LGBT spectrum are few and far between. Early RPGs relegated us to flat, overly stereotypical villains or support characters who were often the butt end of jokes. I said butt. Our current adventures are inundated with overstyled cis, straight anime edgelords saving their waifu honeys. We love their adventures, their struggles, their accomplishments, their hair, and their big swords. But what we'd really love more is to be able to see ourselves in our video game heroes. Okay, so, bear with me here. What if all the trials and tribulations we go through as young queer gamers were actually in front of us the entire time? What if some of our emo heroes' struggles reflected our struggles in coming out and finding our true selves? By combining my big brain powers and my years of experience as a teacher, I have found a way to combine useless English class information with gay stuff. Prepare to have your mind blown. Those video games you're playing also show you what it's like coming out even if they don't have gay characters. The pain, the loneliness, the discovery, and the acceptance. All of it. Ladies and gaybies, I present to you how RPGs helped me with coming out. If you identify as LGBTQ+, or you're an ally, it's very likely that you, or someone you know, has been harassed for their identity. Right off the bat, the first thing we are made to feel as young Galians is that we're too different. We're taught at a very young age that it isn't acceptable to be physically attracted to the same sex. We are feared for it. A lot of us, myself included, were bullied before we even knew what we were being bullied for. Some of us were beaten, and even when we're not, we're still told that who we are isn't good enough. Constant emotional beatdowns like this take a pretty heavy toll on our self-esteem, and most of us have been given an inferiority complex. There are many games that reflect the themes of fear and inferiority. Games aren't shy about showing the uglier sides of human nature. Think of all the times in gaming when a group of beings were judged, persecuted, or ostracized for their differences. In Dragon Age, the Dalish elves are basically enslaved for having different religious views. In Final Fantasy IV, the Kingdom of Baron literally puts the peaceful summoners of Mist through mass genocide because of their powers. The first time I noticed this trend was on my first run-through of Breath of Fire 3. My little 90s middle school gayby mind was all geared up for a new adventure. This was my first romp in the Breath of Fire series, but the concept seemed very promising. Turn-based battles? Cool. Adorable companions? Lit. A silent protagonist who can turn into a dragon? What's not to love? Well, apparently a lot, considering a goddess literally wipes the protagonist's entire race off the map. Being able to turn into a dragon in this universe is quite taboo, which could be understandably terrifying if you put it into perspective. I mean, I guess it makes sense. If I saw someone turn into a dragon, there would definitely be poopage in my pantage. Fortunately though, the dragon tribe is very peaceful. The goddess Miria's fears of dragons dominating the world with their power is unfounded. But it still doesn't stop her from passing judgment and sending her guardians to massacre the dragons. The first scene of Breath of Fire 3 really sets the tone for what it means to be different. Though he does torch a few people after being attacked, people are definitely terrified of little, cute, baby Dragon Ryu. As he learns of his powers, he has to hide who he is in order to not be ostracized. He would be both feared and hunted for his differences. Sound familiar? As a preteen, when I knew I was gay, I didn't feel great about my identity because of how the world told me to feel about people like myself. I'm not going to use my platform to knock religion because I currently have some incredible supportive Christian friends who give zero fucks about who you're bumping uglies with, but there are many religions who make you choke on their anti-gay agenda. It isn't just religion, though. "That's so gay" was probably the most commonly used phrase on the playground. As a child, you don't have the cognizance to know that it's okay to be yourself, regardless of who you like. So, Ryu and I, and like many of you, had a lot in common. It isn't easy for all of us to admit that we're gay. Some people make it look natural. Like they literally came out of the womb as a gold star carrying member of the gay elite, knowing exactly who they were meant to be, and which shoes go with your outfit. The rest of us carry that inferiority complex as a blinder on our path to a self-discovery. I find this the most difficult part of our journey because it requires us to look inward at the things we might not like or be ready to accept about ourselves. We teeter between the things that we secretly want to like and the things that we're told we have to like. As a result, yeah, there's a lot of denial. Video games have their fair share of self-acceptance stories. Characters who frequently find out things they don't like about themselves, like they're the child or sibling or sister wife of the big bad. Maybe their powers are rooted in darkness, or they were meant for world domination like Darth Revan and KOTOR. At the end of the day though, most of these characters come to terms with their differences, and they end up stronger because of it. I think the Persona series really personifies denial and self-acceptance. Get it? Personifies? In order for any of the characters in the series to acquire super awesome powers, they have to go through a major moment of self-acceptance. Though this example is a lot more literal than the last one, there isn't a character who demonstrates the denial of one's sexual preference more than Persona 4's Kanji. A few things I love about Kanji: he's funny, he's a babe, his style, he's a tough guy, he uses lightning magic, he sticks up for a little kid. Did I mention he's a babe? Now, I know there's a lot of debate about whether Kanji's struggles reflect sexual identity or something entirely different, but based on my opinion, and for the sake of this video, I think we can make a fair argument that Kanji might have a little boo in him. I get the impression that it's still pretty taboo to be openly gay in Japan, so to me, it seems like Kanji's arc was likely censored. Kanji's one of those hard on the outside, soft on the inside kind of guys, and he manifests that tough exterior to keep away from his internal struggles. Not gonna spend a lot of time summarizing the plot of Persona 4 as it's awesome, and you should really just experience it on your own, but basically, Kanji is thrown in a dungeon created by his denial of the things he can't come to terms with. His dungeon is hella gay. It's a sauna, the boss is a pair of muscular himbos. Kanji's guilt manifests itself as an overly flamboyant, towel-wearing lisp machine. No shade to lisps, I think they're super cute. That inferiority complex for being different that I mentioned earlier takes a toll so heavy on Kanji that it literally almost kills him. Fortunately, because of the wonderful cast of Persona 4 characters, Kanji is convinced that he should love and accept himself for who he is instead of trying to fight it. Kanji's journey is relatable content, except for the part where he got a 10-foot lightning-wielding giant for accepting himself. That would be pretty cool, though. High school is a terrible time for people, and the journey of self-discovery definitely doesn't stop there. There were several points throughout my high school career where I lied about who I was in order to stop people from judging me. You better believe I said things like, "Oh yeah, I totally have a girlfriend who lives in Canada," and "I don't need to be in a relationship right now, I'm focusing on my grades," and "I wasn't checking out Tyler, he's my best friend." It wasn't until my junior year of high school that I stopped caring what other people thought and started focusing more on loving myself. As Mamoru would say,
if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you gonna love somebody else?
If you're wondering, how do people find themselves? Start looking for people that reflect what you want to be. We as humans often seek to relate. We crave it. We sift through the unrelatable to find something, or rather, someone, or someone's more comforting. Feelings of emptiness and isolation are suddenly cast away to intimate connections. Think of the first time you met someone who was somewhat like you, or what you wanted to be. The excitement, the warmth, the positive energy. Some of us are fortunate enough to find this group in high school. For others, it might not be till college or later in life. For Vivi in Final Fantasy IX, it's a little more complicated. Vivi is basically a queer kid in black mage clothing. Hated by society? Check. Almost every city the cast goes to, people are afraid of and sometimes attack him. He's constantly disassociating himself from the murderous wizards that look just like him. On a journey of self-identity? Check. A part of Vivi's journey revolves around existentialism. There's a constant cloud of who and why am I hanging over his head. Some might argue that Vivi finds his community in the Black Mage Village, and in some way, yeah, he does. Much like Vivi, the Black Mages in their secluded village aren't mindless pawns, nor are they hellbent on world domination. Though Vivi doesn't completely see eye to eye with these outcasts, the acceptance into a community definitely has a positive impact on his character. You could also argue that Vivi's chosen family is the main party itself. Zidane and Steiner are constantly welcoming, they're encouraging, they're reassuring, and they guide Vivi. The main characters are a family to Vivi, and they impact him so heavily on his quest for self-purpose. I'm trying to keep this spoiler-free, but if you've played the game and you know Vivi's final monologue, you get to see how a positive, embracing community can affect you. Final Fantasy characters. They just don't write them like they used to. How did I start finding myself, you ask? It wasn't until senior year when I had my own car that I could finally start going places alone to figure out who I was. Early 2000s Patrick didn't have the large supportive internet communities, and Indianapolis wasn't the most accepting city. However, there was a small LGBT-friendly coffee house downtown that was a common hangout for young queer teens. I can't count the number of times that I lied to my parents and said that I was going to meet up with high school friends. Side note, I had very, very few. While I was actually going downtown to meet people like me, I suddenly felt a lot more connected to something that was much bigger than myself. As a former teacher, I've noticed a lot more general acceptance among teens. There were a lot of good gay-loving vibes amongst the freshmen I taught, and a lot of that acceptance was shared with me as well. It's definitely inspiring and comforting, although I'm by no means saying that things are easier for queer youth now. There are still many issues that the people in the LGBT community still face, and some of that is reflected in the lack of representation in video games. Just remember, all those phases of coming out are present in some capacity in our video game heroes' journeys. You can find things similar to what we go through as young Galians. You just need to know where to look. Again, this is Patrick from RPGaymer. If you like what you saw, give us a like and a subscribe. It fills my heart with joy when people join our community. And for those of you struggling, remember to hang in there, it gets better.